Get your rub on with a...
Hello, world. This is Brad and Brian with Addicted to the Q. Tonight we have on Travis from Gold and Blue BBQ. How are you doing today?
All right, man. How you guys doing?
Oh, not
Good.
too bad at all. So, first off, where did the name Gold and Blue BBQ come from?
Man, so we're out here in West Virginia. God bless the Mountaineers. So instead of blue and gold, we're going gold and blue. Rhymes a little better with barbecue. So
That is very true. So when did you guys start competing?
we did our first contest back in 2018 at the Almost Heaven Barbecue Bash. Got our start like a lot of people. Pit Masters. Watched that show. Thought it looked like a fun thing to do. My father-in-law just had bought a Sling and Steel Game Day 72.
Nice.
So I was like, man, let's just take that thing, go see what it's all about, and check it out. And fell in love with it, and did 2 contests that year. And then 2019, I think we did 5, and now we're doing like 20 a year, it seems.
So, how many thousands of dollars could you have spent or could have saved if you didn't watch Barbecue Pitmasters?
Man, we're not even going to go down that road.
So do you compete by yourself or who you cook with?
So when it started out, it was back in 2018. It was myself and my dad, my wife and her parents, and my mom, and then my aunt and uncle. Well, as we kind of got a little bit more serious about it, it started being my dad and I would go to an event, and then my wife would come in on like Saturday or Sunday if it was a double and help out. Well, my wife's she's pretty serious about competition too, and she thought she could beat me, and she broke off and started her own team with her dad called Better Half Barbecue. So now she competes as her own team, we compete as our own team. So right now it's mostly my dad and myself that compete. Some competitions in our region, my wife and her dad will compete against us. So the whole family's still there, and we got a couple of them coming up this fall where her whole family will be there, my whole family will be there, the kids will all be there, and we'll be competing against each other. So that makes it fun.
So double the money.
Pretty
Uh,
much.
so you're not cooking Mayetta this year, are you? You're not cooking the Invitational.
Nah, we decided not to go to that this year. Instead, we're going down to Montgomery, Alabama to Pusey.
Gotcha. That's the same weekend as Puzacu this year.
Yeah, we no, but it's just tough financially to justify 2 big trips like that. And we've been
Gotcha.
wanting to do Pusey for a few years now, so we decided this was going to be the year we do it.
Which you went last year, didn't you? So it's not like you haven't been doing the Invitational.
Yeah, we went out 2 years ago to Oklahoma, and then we were in Alabama last year for the Invitational. So we've done it twice. Finished third overall in Oklahoma, and then I think we were ninth overall last year. So.
That's not bad for that caliber of teams.
Nah, I mean, being the top 10 both times we've been there, I'll take that.
Oh yeah. So we're going to kind of break away from the competition scene and get into more of the Mid-Atlantic scene because you are the big supporter of the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association of backyard
Hmm.
cooks. Why? How did the Mid-Atlantic? I mean, because Mid-Atlantic has more backyard teams than they do master teams. How did that start? Go about? How did that even in the Midwest? We can't grow the sport of backyard good enough.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say that Mid Atlantic has more backyard teams. I think backyard teams are probably still heavily outnumbered to master teams, but it's substantially grown probably the past 3 years. So back in, I believe it was 2020, myself, Chris Shriver with Brother Uncle Barbecue, and Steve Dotson with DQ Barbecue all kind of got together and said, hey, let's really promote backyard. Let's grow this. We already kind of had a core group of probably 10 of us that were really starting to travel together, compete together. And it really all started with the Facebook group. We kind of created a group. We kind of pitched it, see if people were kind of interested, maybe doing like a team of the year points chase thing. One thing led to another. I'm developing a website for it, hosting it. Um, Put a points chase together, kind of loosely based off of what the Mid Atlantic Barbecue Association was doing with their Master Series Team of the Year, which was kind of based off the KCBS point system. And that first year, I think we had 16 teams that ended up coming on board for that Team of the Year points chase.
Nice.
A lot of those teams were members with the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association. So the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association didn't really have a backyard Team of the Year thing in place. Now you could join that association as a backyard team. There just really wasn't much of a benefit for you if you wanted to chase points or do something like that. So we were in constant talks with them about them kind of helping guide us and stuff. And they kept a really close eye on what we were doing. They kind of helped us develop a logo for it, kind of helped us with the points. They saw the success in it. What really I think kicked it off was the year that they had the very first backyard invitational for KCBS. We had, I think there was 20 teams from the Mid-Atlantic region and backyard that
Breathe.
and y'all back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Froze
So,
for a minute.
yeah. So we had a really big group of backyarders from our region that were doing this kind of off the books Team of the Year choice that went out there. And we made a statement. I was not part of that group. I didn't get a chance to go. But you watch that live feed, and man, those guys were just hooping and hollering and rooting for one another during the live award ceremony. And there was a lot of pro teams that made the comment, man, watching those teams have that kind of camaraderie and support, that's awesome. It makes me want to go back to backyard. So I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes that, hey, these guys take it serious, but they're also supporting one another and having a really good time doing it. The following year, the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association decided to adopt backyard as its own separate Team of the Year points chase. So we got that going now. More teams are coming into that association and growing that association. But yeah, we don't have more backyard teams that do master teams, but the backyard teams can hold their own as far as quality that's going out.
Yeah.
Would you guys consider it more of a 2-meat cook versus a 4-meat cook? You guys don't really consider it backyard masters. You consider it 2
Yeah,
meats.
I would say at least the cooks in our region. I mean, we all still consider ourselves backyard cooks, but we like to call ourselves 2-meat cooks or semi-pro or something like that. It's when we're putting out the same level quality as what the master teams are. To us, we're not some backyard guy. I mean, I was having a conversation with some other guys. It's kind of fun having that nomenclature as backyard because people's like, oh, backyard teams, what are they doing? Well, then you go to the single meat rib burns or chicken cooks. Well, hell, you got 6, 7, 5 backyard guys all in the top 10 with the master guys. So it's the same qualities there. But yeah, this region we're finding ourselves kind of considering it 2-meat, 3-meat versus 4-meat. So
Yeah, I've had multiple master cooks tell me they're like, I'd rather not go against you guys in chicken and ribs because you guys get really good at cooking them. Because when you cook 2
yeah,
meats, it's not a game of averages. You have to do really well in both of them to get the grand.
bingo.
Mhm.
You don't have a so to say a throwaway protein like a 4-meat. Not saying you got one to throw away, but if you bomb pork and do really good on the other 3 proteins, you still got a shot. You bomb chicken, well, you might as well just pack up and go home.
Yep.
But at least in our region, we're finding a lot of backyard contests are actually starting to go more to a 3-meat setup, which I think is making it more beneficial to us because we've got a lot of teams that have gone from backyard, taken that step up, and have gone master. A couple of those teams off the rack, Optimus Swine, DQ'd. You look at them, there's a couple of them sitting in the top 10 overall rankings in the KCBS in their first or second year in Master Series. So,
Well, you think about it, all you got to really add is brisket. If you've been cooking chicken, pork, and ribs for the last few years, you're just adding one more meat to it to kind of get better
yeah,
at.
bingo. So I kind of like the 3-meat thing. I think next year, I think Dad and I are talking, we might just strictly do just 3-meat competitions and maybe start getting ready to take that plunge in the Masters. So, but I kind of prefer the 3-meats because, like you said, if you screw up one, you still have a chance of maybe doing pretty good overall.
Mhm.
Yeah, like Osceola was a 3-meat contest, and it was a lot more a game of averages than it is when you just have chicken and ribs.
Yep.
So, who would you consider a barbecue mentor?
Oh man, where do you even start? There's so many good cooks. both in this region and outside of it. I would say probably one of my biggest ones though is it's got to be Chris Shriver with Brother Uncle. He's been helping on Wuss Revenge here the past couple years, but he's pretty close to me. He's only probably half hour up the road, so I talk to him a lot. And when we first started competing backyard, he was like the guy to beat in backyard in this area, and we got in right on his last year of backyard. So it was kind of fun starting out with him and watching him go pro. And I bounced a lot of ideas off of him and tips and tricks. So I would say probably him. But there's so many, Charles Cridlin with Wuss Revenge, Luke Darnell with Old Virginia Smoke. We've got so many good cooks in this region. Of course, Urkel with Uncle Pigs, who was the KCBS Team of the Year last year. There's so many good cooks. It's hard just to say one.
So I will say one thing in a video that got me started kind of into competition barbecue was your introduction. Would you have 4 or 5 teams? I think you had Varnish.
There might have been more than that. There might have been 8 or 9 teams on that. Yeah, that was a good video.
That was a really good eye-opening video, which I knew a lot about competition barbecue, but that was definitely one that I watched a couple times to get me.
Mm-hmm.
So are you continuing the podcast, or you kind of put the brakes on it, busy doing other stuff?
So all the stuff's still there. I could easily have another show tomorrow if I wanted to, but we, my wife and I had twins last year, and there was some complications we had with them, and right now we just kind of put the show on the back burner, focus a little bit more on family, especially trying to do the show and compete, prep for the competitions. It's that fine line of balancing family time and competition. So to help balance that, I just decided to get rid of the show for right now until the kids get a little bit older and things kind of slow down. And then we might come back to that. But I do kind of miss the show because it was a very good show for what backyard is. It helped really grow what the backyard has become.
This week's gonna be full to the brim. We're getting ready for Mayetta. I know that's gonna be a busy.
Mm-hmm.
I got everything going about every week, every night this week. So I do have a question. You have some drums that I've seen that are how do you call them? The T drums?
The T drum. Yeah.
Does that thing cook like a normal drum, or how does that? I've always been curious on those.
So it's funny you said we just did a rib fundraiser today, and I was just actually running that, but we only have one. We call it the T drum. It's basically a regular drum on the bottom, and then we got a drum going horizontal on the top.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it cooks a lot like a hybrid. You still get that good direct heat like a normal drum coming up, but it almost cooks like an offset. So it's kind of weird. It's got a couple zones like right in the middle where the diffuser plate is because of how the air flows. That middle plate almost works like an offset. It's not really a true direct heat because that direct heat hits that baffle plate and kind of goes to the sides. But it cooks. It's like I said, it's weird, but I would say it cooks. If I had to say, it cooks like a drum with a little bit of a cool spot on it right in the middle. So,
do you use it for competition, or is it kind of just an extra?
So we started out cooking ribs on it, and that was back when we were cooking 4 ribs per comp. Since then, we've gone to 3 ribs per comp, and we've just switched to a regular drum. A lot of that's just for moving it back and forth. That T drum, as much as I love it and it's a cool conversation piece, that thing's just a pain to move around. It's kind of weird to lift up and down. It's kind of heavy. Yeah. So when we were doing 3 meets up until last year, we would take it to 3 meet comps or comps with ancillary events and do ancillaries on it. Since then, we've kind of changed our pork program, so now we're running that on a Green Mountain Grill Trek, just a little small guy. So we're not actually taking the T drum out anymore. It's kind of just staying at home, being a home cook thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of drums do you have then? Are they homemade? Or are they?
Yeah, so our drums we're running everything we run is basically homemade. So the drums we're running now are homemade drums. We got slick sad drums, just because we wanted that thicker wall thickness. So found a place in West Virginia down the lower part. Traveled 6 hours one way. We brought a whole trailer of them back just so we had a stockpile of them. Reached out to our friends at UDS Parts, got the kits. We're running their access doors on them. So they're very similar to what a cotton gin smoker is. They got the access door on the front. But one big thing that we've done different, instead of putting offset exhaust towards the backside. We actually run our exhaust dead center of the lid. Um, we truly feel that running that exhaust in the middle of the lid kind of eliminates a hot zone. Of course, anybody that watches Barbecue League, you're always hearing about turning your meats, turning the grates, running a water pan so you have a cool zone and a hot zone. I think running that exhaust in the dead center of your lid, we don't flip meats, we don't rotate our racks, we just let it rip where it's at, and everything cooks evenly. So I think running that exhaust dead center of the top lid really is a difference maker there.
I would never would have thought about that.
Hmm.
So you have a pretty cool toy I noticed, and that is a pizza oven. How do
Oh
you
yeah,
like that thing?
man. If y'all have never tried pizza oven pizza, something that you've done yourself, you're missing out. They're kind of a pain to figure out and learn the quirks of them, but once you figure out how to run it, that's the only way you're going to want to cook pizza for your family anymore. So it's, I love that brand, the Pizzolo brand. It's very budget friendly. You can get that one without the gas option for under $200 shipped to your door. Um, you can get a gas option, which if you don't want to fight it and have the little quirks, a gas option is a great way to go. You just kind of light the flame. It'll do all the work for you. But man, those pizza ovens are awesome. They cook out some pretty amazing pizza. We've done some turkey smoke ancillaries on them, and anytime we do a double competition, we have that in tow, and we do pizza Saturday night at the campsite. So
Hmm.
So you say you have a Green Mountain Grill pellet smoker. How do you like those? I've looked at
mm,
Green Mountain Grills.
yeah, I did a lot of research. Of course, you got the big brands, Traeger and uh, some of the other ones, but I kept going back to Green Mountain. I kind of liked the fact they were kind of more boxier instead of a rounded top. Um, there's a couple companies out there that make additional rack systems so you can put multiple racks in there since it is squared off. Um, and it just so happened that one of our sponsors, Mountaineer Meat Smokers, opened up a pro shop and became a GMG dealer. So it worked out good for us. I can deal with him, get the parts. This past weekend, we actually did a wing challenge and had to do 10 pounds of wings. So he actually let me come to the shop and grab a Green Mountain Peak, which is the largest one they make, and took it up there right off the showroom floor, ran the wings on that, and he's making that a demo model. But Green Mountains are awesome. Um, a cool thing with them is the adapter is not built into the unit, so they run off 12 volt. So you have a 12-volt adapter plug that plugs in, which means you can run them off a car battery if you want. So that's actually what we do.
Nice.
We run ours off of the battery off the trailer. That way,
Yep.
if your shore power or your generator goes out, you're not screwing your cook and losing power. So,
That's what I'm always afraid of.
mhm. Yeah. So if you're looking into going the pellet route for competition, uh, Green Mountain's a good way to go just because you can run it directly off a 12-volt battery source. You don't have to worry about losing your shore power in the middle of a cook.
So if you had to give any advice to somebody wanting to get started in competition barbecue, what would you tell them?
So there's a great YouTube channel called Gold and Blue BBQ that has an awesome roundtable discussion.
Yes.
No, that seriously, that roundtable discussion has so many questions and answers for new teams. But I'll go back and say probably one of the biggest things is don't be afraid to ask questions. We've all been a first time team, and it is intimidating
Mhm.
going into that competition setting with people that do this week in, week out, and have quite a few competitions under their belt. But I think that intimidation is kind of a falsehood because Ryan, Brad, you all know as well as I do, we'll help anybody out. If you
Yep.
need a rub, sauce, hell, if you need a rack of ribs, I'll give you a rack of ribs if you need it. So I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing people just need to realize is don't be afraid to ask your buddy to sit up beside of you. Go ask the big team. They're going to be more than willing to help you out, especially as a new team.
We don't want teams to be one and done on contests. That's for dang
Nope.
sure.
Yeah. And that's the key to keep the sport growing. You gotta hook and bait them. So if you can dangle that little thing out there, and that's for us, it seems like we always get set up beside new teams, and I love that. We go over, help them. Hell, I've done quite a few chicken and rib trimming classes on Friday nights for new teams just to try to show them, hey, I see you got thighs. You haven't trimmed them yet. Let me show you a cool way to trim them that will really help you out. So to do that on a Friday night and seeing those guys really appreciate that. And then, sometimes those guys will end up getting a call the next day during the competition.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool because kind of gives you a little sense of pride that, hey, I helped that guy out and now he's hooked. And then you end up seeing him at another competition. But like you said, you need to keep those people coming back for the good of the sport and to keep the sport growing.
So I
Yep.
think I'm gonna be parked next to you the next competition just so you can trim my chicken. I just don't want to do it. I don't.
uh,
Not that I don't know how. I just don't
That,
want to
I
do
won't trim your chicken, but I'll show you the best way I know how.
it.
that's no fair. I was going to pay him for all his chicken after he trimmed at the class.
I hate
Yeah,
trimming
speaking on
chicken.
that, we've got a big competition coming up in Mannington, West Virginia. It's, Forks
Oh,
of the
nice.
Buffalo. We're actually doing to help out new teams, whether they're pro or backyard. We're doing a Friday night chicken and rib trimming. I don't want to say it's a tell-all because we're not really telling you anything other than just showing you how we trim it. And it may not be the method that works for them, but it's an actual hands-on, non-YouTube way of seeing somebody trim competition chicken thighs and spare ribs.
Hmm.
And then our good friends Henry and Nikki with Off the Rack Barbecue, they're going to be their competing master. They piggybacked on us and they're going to do a trimming tell-off for pork butt and brisket that same evening. So
It's
yeah,
actually
I
really
think
good
that's just yeah, I think
because
that's a
I
cool thing. I hope that's something that teams in other regions and other venues see us kind of doing that and be like, hey, Friday night I've got to trim a rack of ribs. If anybody wants to come over and see how to do it, if you've never trimmed a rack of ribs for competition before, come on over about 8 o'clock. We'll be trimming. So
that's what our buddy Kevin with Weekend Bum did. He had a team reach out to him and was like, "Hey, I don't know how to trim pork," and he went over there and had a couple teams and he did one and had them do their own and it was kind of a hands-on
mhm.
pork trimming because I can watch all the videos I want, but then when I have a brisket or a pork butt sitting in front of me trying to trim it, it's a whole different story.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Especially like some of your bigger cuts of meat, it's a lot easier to explain the different muscles in person where you can pick it up, point to it, and somebody can actually get really close and see what you're talking about. Same way with chicken, we talk about the oyster and the vein and all that. You may not be able to grasp what that actually is on a YouTube video, but if you're standing right beside somebody watching it, well, it's going to click a lot better. So,
Yep,
Oh,
that
yeah.
is very true. So, what's the biggest competition you've cooked? Was it the Invitational?
man, I believe so. Maybe not. We have a big one out here called um, used to be Smoke on the Grove, which is now Smoke on the Rails. I want to say it was last year or the year before. I think they had 42 backyard teams.
Wow.
Um, so it's either that one or the Invitational. Um, yeah. So it'll actually be Hoosappew this year will be our new biggest one. I think they've got 60 some backyard teams signed up right now.
That's a
So
huge backyard contest.
yeah, there's 150 teams total at that contest. So
Yeah, you're
Wow.
talking about getting intimidated. I got a buddy from I went to high school with that went to Osceola, and he saw all the trailers of slaps and getting
mhm.
basted and some of the guys, and he's like, I felt like I was in way over my head. I was like, no, that's just the master teams. That's
Yep.
those guys do 40 some comps a year. They kind of said tell slaps that have a dishwasher in their trailer. So
Yeah, but even then, those guys are beatable. They lose every week.
oh yeah,
I mean, it's not unheard of for a newer team to go into a competition against those guys and do well and potentially even
oh
beat
yeah.
them. So,
I always say it just has to take a good cook. That's all it
yep,
takes.
a lot of factors at play and luck on your side.
That's like cooking. That's like cooking the Royal. You got to cook good food, but you got to be lucky too.
Yeah, the amount of teams at the Royal just blows my mind. Yeah, I've often thought that would be a neat event to go and cook, but then I'm like, man, you look at how big the Open is. There's got to be 80% luck on that because
Oh
there's
yeah.
no way you're getting fair judging across the board with 400 and some teams.
No, and I think I've judged it 3 4 times now. It's a crapshoot judging. It is
Hmm.
organized chaos for the judges, even much less the teams. And like half the time, I was at a table where it's like the judge. I don't think he knew what he was looking for. Like I don't think he knew what was good or what. I mean, just a crapshoot. There's a
Hmm.
crapshoot all the way across. There's so many
Yeah.
tables, so many. But it is a fun event just to go to, though. It is a
Oh, absolutely.
that speedway. They put about a spot about everywhere you can put a spot at.
It's definitely on our bucket list. So
So if you had to cook a meat that was not, well, it can be competition, but not necessarily competition. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh man, right now probably tri-tips.
Oh, I do like
We've
tri-tips.
we've been cooking the heck out of some tri-tips lately, and it seems like every one we cook just gets better than the one before it. So
Hmm.
I like I like tri-tip. It's kind of a cheaper way of getting some good food, good meat though.
yeah, I always tell people, man, if you want something cheaper than a brisket that you can get to taste better, get a tri-tip. You're going to cook it a lot quicker, and I think personally it tastes better than a brisket. So
I've kind of come to that conclusion too. So, have you cooked any Master Series, or you did the one last year, didn't you? The Invitational.
yeah, so we've done the invitational both years we went. We did the open, and then we went up to Harrisburg, PA for a Master Series competition last year and competed. So
So, have you? So you've thought about taking that jump, you just haven't quite got there yet.
mhm. Yeah, so our end game's always been to move up, but we're not going to move up until we feel we're consistent enough in the two main meets to make that jump. I think we're getting close, but we're still not there yet. So
So,
yeah.
between you and your wife, who's the better cook? Who's done better in competitions, you or her?
So that's a pretty hot topic in this household. And I'll be honest, if you looked at the numbers, it would be me. But if you look at statistically, it's going to be her. Um, so she's only competed, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 times, and she hit over a 350 before I did, and got a grand before I did. On the flip side of that, I've got a lot more first place and a lot more reserves and everything else, but I've also done 5 times the amount of competition she has.
So her
One big
percentage
factor
is better.
too is when we go and compete. She's got our twins, and she usually has our daughter in her trailer because they got a nice big camper now, so there's room for them. So she's got to worry about the kids. She's a breastfeeding mother, so which shout out to all the breastfeeding moms out there. It is National Breastfeeding Week, I believe. So she's got to in the middle of her doing her cook, she's got to worry about pumping and all that. So she's not fully focused on that cook. And even when she's got all that going on, she's still right there knocking on the door of a reserve or a grand.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I got really nothing to worry about. I try to help her with kids when it's feeding time and stuff, but when you compare the two, she's got a hell of a lot more going on than I do, and she's putting up the same numbers I am. So I will say my wife's the better cook all day long, and I'll stand by that. So
Her percentage is better. Her
correct.
batting average is better.
She went up to Delaware this year. I stayed home with the kids. I said, "You go try it without the kids. That way you can solely focus on it." And she ended up granding with like a 352, 353. Just
Wow.
walk the field. So
So, in other words, you're going to give it up, and she's going to start cooking all the time, then, huh?
if it comes to it, yeah. Now she'll actually be heading out in 2 weeks to Frostburg, Maryland, and I'm going to stay back with the kids and let her go and try to get another grand this year. So
Well, that's really cool though that she's interested in it as much as you are.
yeah, well for us it's a cool way for both of us to hang out with our dads. So my dad and I go out, and it's us catching up on lost time we didn't really have when I was a kid, and Lauren and her dad, it's kind of the same for them. They get to go out and spend some time together. So it's cool that we get to do that. But financially, it's a stressful situation. But like myself, we do fundraisers to help pay for our events, and my wife and her dad, they do fundraisers to help pay for their events. So we're really not pulling money out of the house income to support this hobby. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I
Yeah.
I cook with my son, so I kind of time that me and him get to cook together. So that's why we enjoy it.
mhm.
Well, Brian, do you have anything? I think I'm kind of running out of questions here.
What all cookers have you had the whole time you've been from starting out to now?
Oh man, for competition or just in general?
General and comp.
So I think my first smoker was probably an Oklahoma Joe offset, just one of the basic run of the mill ones we all started out with. Went from that to we got that Sling and Steel trailer model at game day, and then from there we really just started going to drums. I built my first drum, which was just a very rude, crude one, and really liked it. And we ended up building a second one to piggyback that one. Then I got the wild hair up my butt to do the T drum. We built the T
Hmm.
drum, and I realized the difference in wall thickness between rib drums versus um, smooth drums. So we pour all the hardware off of our rib drums and build them on smooth stab drums. So I think right now, I think me personally, I think I've had 6 or 7 drums. So, and we've built drums for other teams. Weber's Backyard Barbecue, he ended up granding day 2 of the event. We granded on day 1. He's running our drums. So it was cool seeing drums that came out of our garage grand both days at that double. My wife, she runs drums we made for her. So I tell you, drums, if you're not cooking on drums, especially chicken, you need to really sit back and think about it. So, but yeah, it seems like I think that's all. We got that Green Mountain grill, that little Trek. We're getting ready to buy a ledge, Green Mountain ledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to start going to competitions with us. We're going to
That
quit taking
is that the big one?
No, the
The
Peak is
lead,
the really big one.
the
The
peak.
ledge is yeah.
They changed all the names of them when they put the new smoke regulator in them, so I can't remember which ones they replaced.
Yeah, so funny story about the name change is the reason they changed the name, I don't know if you knew this or not, was because when they hit the European market, nobody knew who Davy Boone or Davy Crockett was and stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
crazy.
changed yeah, they changed the nomenclature on them to make it more sellable in overseas markets. So yeah, so we're gonna get a ledge, which is the medium sized one.
Okay.
That's gonna start going to the events with us. Like I said, right now we take the Trek. And it works, but if we got a turkey smoke ancillary to do on top of a 3 meat, trying to run the turkey and the pork on that just kind of gets a little cumbersome. So we're just going to upgrade to something a little bit bigger just to help support ancillary events that happen on the same day as a 3 meat comp.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
mhm.
Let's see. Favorite barbecue restaurant you've ever been to throughout the U.S.?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Probably, probably when we were in Nashville, I think it was Peg Leg Porker we went to, and it was
Heard of
pretty
that
good. Hmm.
Yeah. I think he sponsors a NASCAR or some car like that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think it's ARCA maybe. I don't think it's the full-fledged NASCAR, but I think it's the next series down.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. Do you ever make it down to Florida at all?
No, I tell you, the farther south we go, the more I sweat. So I try to avoid Florida.
that.
Stay up there. So
I
how
look,
far
I
are you
look
from
out on a hot day and start sweating. So,
Blacksburg, Virginia?
so if I go out my door and hop on 81, it's about probably about a 3.5 hour drive to Virginia Tech.
Okay. Now don't get me, I'm probably wrong, but isn't there a Huntsville, West Virginia?
There's a Huntington. There probably is a Huntsville. There's so many small
Huntington.
towns.
Huntington.
Yeah,
That's where I stop is Huntington.
that's where Marshall University's at.
Okay, I stop there all the time when I go to Blacksburg to see my brother. How far are you from
That makes
there?
sense. We're probably 8 9 hours from Huntington.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was like,
only
man,
about
I'll
an
be
hour.
passing by. Nope, no, never mind.
Now, I'm only about an hour and a half outside of the Baltimore, Washington D.C. metro area.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
If I get on the interstate, I can be in Washington or Baltimore within about an hour and a half. So
Oh wow,
yeah,
yeah, we go out
we're
there
up
a
on
lot. And this Thanksgiving, I was thinking of trying to see if he could find a competition around out there and take him because we're there for about a week and a half.
yeah.
Who knows?
When is that?
Around Thanksgiving.
There's one. There's one in November in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. That's really the only one in our region going on in November. So,
Okay.
but that one's pretty cool. It's in conjunction with a rodeo. It's called
Yep.
Currituck's Bulls and Barbecue. So,
Nice.
but it's right on the beach. Has a rodeo that goes on with it. So,
One of these days, I'm going to get Brad to go down to Florida with me, and they got some pretty nice ones down there I want to hit, but I need someone to go, so I'm recruiting Brad.
We should go.
It'd be fun.
hey, tell you, there's a lot of really good competitions. If you're coming through Huntington, that's not much farther up to like Mannington. I was talking about the one in Mannington coming up. From Huntington to Mannington, you're probably looking, I don't know, 3 hours.
That's not bad at
So
all.
And that's a double day with an SCA Friday night comp. So
it's got to be cold because I'm too fat to get down in this heat. I'm kind of agree with Travis. I get too much past Missouri and Oklahoma. I'm glad I didn't go to Oklahoma this past weekend, or I would have melted.
Yeah, they were saying it's 105 down there.
It went from 105, windy, 71. Kevin with Weekend Bum says, if it snows, I'm telling him this is the weirdest contest I've ever been to in my life, because we had tornadoes at home here in Missouri Friday night. It was weird. We were driving home, and I'm like, yep, that's definitely a funnel cloud.
Wow. Crazy.
Well, do you have
I
any?
see Ron Davis
What's that?
I see Ron Davis in the chat talking about Pimp My Grill. When I was talking about the company that makes the rack system that you can add into Green Mountains, it's Pimp My Grill. So he just reminded me of that. But yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're a little pricey, but they're stainless and they replace your grates and everything. But you can get a 2 or a 3 level grate system. So
that's pretty
you don't
cool.
have to drill or anything. They're just like compression fit in. So yeah, Pimp My Grill. That's it.
So speaking of sponsors, you want to give a shout out to your sponsors real quick?
Oh, absolutely. How much time you got?
However long.
Nah, we've been fortunate. We've got a great family of sponsors that support us. I'm not going to go and talk about all of them, but some of the big ones that we have is, of course, UDSparts.com has been with us since the beginning. Chris Kostman with BoosterBarbecue.com. He's got some killer rubs that he just put on the market right now. Utzberg's Rubs and Salsas. He just put out a maple rub. And it was a funny story about his maple rub. He just put that out in all the goodie bags at this competition we were just at last weekend. And day one, we just annihilated everybody. Swept first place in every category, grand overall. And I made it well known that we ran maple really heavy on our ribs that day, which we did. It was a factual thing because we've been playing with that rub before it ever came to market. And it was funny because day two, I know quite a few teams that switched to that rub and they all walked. And one of them granded backyard on day two running that. So, shout out to Utzwork. That maple rub is something special. Vosteed knives, Clay Hill charcoal. There's so many. Mountaineer Meat Smokers, Country Boys Barbecue. We got so many good sponsors that treat us well and hook us up with some good deals and pricing. It definitely helps, even if it's just getting stuff at cost. You all know how it is. Every little penny helps when you're traveling all over and buying meats. So
yeah,
very much so.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on. We
absolutely, guys.
Talking barbecue. Brian, anything else before I let him go for tonight?
No, we'll catch up close to winter time or after winter and see how the season went.
Definitely. If y'all ever want to do a comp in West Virginia or even Virginia, man, let me know. I'll tell you which ones are the best ones to do.
Sounds good.
I'll reach out for that, definitely.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Hey, y'all. Yep, y'all too.